Welcome to Huntsman's copse, an area mixing both the best and the worst an area can have. Accessible after talking to Licia of Lindelt, a totally honest miracle seller, this area starts pretty good. The environment is dark, you have to progress through a forest filled with undead enemies, bandits, and poison butterfly. The atmosphere here is really good, honestly. The enemies are fine and tougher than the ones in previous areas, while not being overly frustrating. Nothing exceptional, but it's not bad. It's kind of like a continuity of the Forest of Fallen Giants in a sense, because you have the forest team, although it is much darker here, and you have also undead enemies. Now, I want to take some time to praise the poison butterfly enemy, because the very first time I played through Dark Souls 2, I kept getting poisoned by those things, because I forgot to put stats in dexterity and I wasn't able to use a bow to snipe them. Now that I play through Dark Souls 2 again, I realized that the game gives you enough souls to be able to wield basically every type of weapon very early on, including bows and crossbows. Arriving here and sniping everything you can snipe feels good, and it makes the exploration rewarding. It also makes your decision making rewarding, and it makes, of course, everything kinda easier. But it makes it easier in a good way, because you used your brain and you used everything the game had to offer in your advantage. I really want to put the emphasis on this, because for me it's a very good point for this area and for the game overall. It's something we don't see as much in other Souls games. When I say we don't see that as much in other Souls games, I don't have an example of this right now in my mind in other Souls games. There are probably some examples that exist. If you have some ideas, don't hesitate to tell me in the comments. Now, for Dark Souls 2, for me it's a good point. I know there are a lot of mechanics that are questionable in this game, but this part right here is good in my book. Now, the path to exit the area is pretty straightforward, although there are a few branching paths here and there. One of them leads to the infamous Undead Purgatory. This optional area is a purge. It packs some of the worst thing you can find in any area, although it's not quite the worst one, because the frigid outskirts exist. I'll talk about the Undead Purgatory in its own video, because all the really bad things you can find in Huntsman's copse are mainly focused on this part, in the Undead Purgatory. For now, I'm going to focus on the rest of Huntsman's copse, and I'll talk about the Undead Purgatory next video. So, after getting through the forest, fighting a bunch of undead with sickles, running after a guy to get his items, getting ambushed by bandits, getting poisoned by butterflies, you unlock the access to the end of the area with a bridge that leads to two different paths. One leads to a cave filled with skeletons, which is blocked at some point, so you're forced to take the other path. The other path is filled with bandits and ambush. And while you are fighting the bandits, there is a wizard in the skeleton cave that is shooting at you. Once you reach the end of the area, you can go back through the skeleton cave, open the way to come back to the start of the area, and you can get revenge on the wizard. You also unlock a few Estus shards for your Estus flasks. Next, at the end of the area, of course, there is a boss. Here, the boss are the Skeleton Lords. Now, this boss is nothing exceptional. It's very easy, but it's not as easy as Prowling Magnus and Congregation. It's not too bad. The idea behind it is pretty good. Like, you fight a bunch of stronger skeletons, and when you defeat them, there's like a horde of skeletons rising from the ground to hunt you down. It's pretty easy. While the idea is good and the fight not too frustrating, I think it's not a fight that makes you feel bad, and at the same time, you kinda want more at the end of the encounter, Like, when you start the game, and you fight like the last giant, the pursuer, they are fine bosses for early game. When you reach Huntsman's copse, it's not quite the late game, but at the same time, it's not the early game anymore. So you kinda expect more from the boss fights. And here, there's a cool mechanic, but it falls rather short. And this is something we see a lot with Dark Souls 2 bosses. They all have like one or two great mechanics, but the fight is either too easy or it doesn't expand on the mechanics enough. If we pick the Skeleton Lords, in that case, the fight is too easy. Maybe we could get a second phase with like a Skeleton King rising from the ground, and it's a really tough skeleton guy, something like this for example. Same for Prowling Magnus, the fight is way too easy. And while the ideas aren't bad, they didn't go far enough with it. They didn't work on the boss fights enough, in my opinion. And that's something you'll hear me say again about later bosses. Right now, the Skeleton Lords is an okay boss, but it's on the lower side of boss fights because it's too easy. Overall, I like this area a lot, except for the Undead Purgatory, but I'll talk about it in the next video. The rest of it is cool. I like the atmosphere, I like the enemies, they are good to fight. The lore of the area is good, I won't talk about it, but it's pretty nice. The boss at the end is too easy, and I wish it was harder, or at least a bit longer. I wish it had more to it, and in a remake, this is something they should work on. The other things they should work on in a remake are, well, it's mainly about the Undead Purgatory. So yeah, I'm going to leave you with this for today. Next video, the Undead Purgatory. Be careful, because in this video, I'm going to be a tiny bit salty about it, okay? Anyway, have a good day, have a good time, and I'll see you around. Bye!